Calling to order the Kingston Springs Regional Planning Commission meeting for 13 July 2023. Before I proceed, I just want to recognize, I think all of you know, or most of you know, that we lost Chuck. Passed away recently. His funeral was, I think, was it last Saturday?
So the first. From Saturday. Saturday first.
So anyway, how long was he on the planning commission? 30-something?
30 years. 33, I think.
So,
Well, he was 30 years on the planning commission, 3 years on the board of zoning appeals, and 12 years, I believe, on the city commission.
Yeah.
so a long time city servant. And I just want to have a moment of silence in memory of Chuck. Okay, thank you. So we'll have a roll call of voting members. Keith Armstrong. Sorry, Sharon.
Sharon?
Okay.
Sharon's eyes got real big.
I do not have dyslexia. Let me try again.
Girl, you have redone your hair.
Keith Allgood.
Present.
Tony Thompson's absent. Tony Gross.
Here.
Mike Hargis is absent. Lauren Hill. Here. Mike Patno here. Craig Kitch.
Here.
Maurice Spafford is absent.
No, I'm here.
When did you come in here?
Oh, about 10 minutes ago.
Not even that, not even that.
I apologize,
minutes
Marie.
ago, Mike.
So
He
you're
was here
here.
before you were, Mike.
What?
I've been sitting over there.
Okay. My new glasses. And Bob Stoller's absent. Okay.
You should ask Keith Armstrong about that.
All right, well, we made it through the roll call. All right, so the non-voting staff, Sharon Armstrong,
I'm absolutely here.
Dan Smola is not here, correct?
That is correct.
Only at our request. Okay, ex officio, John Lawless, city manager.
Here.
And we did not request an attorney for this meeting. Okay, so we have a quorum. You all have the June 8th Planning Commission meeting minutes before you. Do we have a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve.
Second it.
Okay, who's recording minutes?
All right.
Okay, John, you got that. Let me
Yes,
know
sir.
if you don't get it. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Then you have today's agenda before you. Do we have any amendments to this agenda? We do not. Okay.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so today's agenda is approved.
Keith, if you want to start doing the first, and I'll do the second real fast, we can become the new Chuck and Tony.
I'm telling you.
That's what he just said.
Okay, motion to approve. May 11th. Okay, I got
And we can
you.
go back and visit if there's really anything we need to discuss.
Wait a minute. Yeah, okay. Let me get back to the right page. Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, I skipped a page. Okay, community input. Is there anybody here who wants to speak before the planning commission? Seeing nobody, we'll move on from that item. Declaration of conflicts. Now, so this should be changed.
It will be after
Once
you
we
vote
approve
on
the, yeah, okay,
Yes,
right,
it will
right,
change.
right. Okay, so, you have the declaration of conflicts before you. In the event that any member shall have a personal interest of any kind in a matter that before this municipal regional planning commission, he or she shall disclose interest and be disqualified from voting upon the matter, and the secretary shall show recorded minutes that no vote was cast by such a member. It's actually, the wording's going to change a little bit, but I just wanted to put that. So, was Chuck the secretary? No, he had already.
He stepped off.
That's right. That he had already stepped off, right. Okay, so old business. An update on the Ellerslie PUD, and also, Sharon, Craig, had you looked at it when it was raining?
Yes.
So when you update us on that PUD, I don't know if you guys
Absolutely
are
will. I
We have not
visited
talked, no.
After the last two rains,
Okay.
After the first rain, it was a mud bath and it was kind of messy. And behind all the houses that were completed, next to the two houses recently completed up on the hill, there was a fair amount of soil disposition. They installed a very large, round, bale straw soil erosion control. After that, they had some slippage on some of the other areas. They still have not removed the debris pile that is causing some of the runoff in the back corner. They also have uncovered more dirt going up towards the back where they're starting to lay out the road base for the finish of phase 1. So I have a letter drafted that will go out to the developer tomorrow, informing him that they're going to have to seed the straw back pretty quickly, or gravel it one, to keep that from slipping down the hill. I also had a protracted conversation with Mr. May, who is in charge, he's supervisor of the site work, and explained to him that if the soil and erosion controls were insufficient, and he felt that they were insufficient as they were planned, he would need to have that discussion with the property owners, and then he'd submit a new plan. What I saw the second time was a major improvement. A lot of it's just lack of maintenance of soil and erosion controls. And the steepness of the hill, there was 3.5 inches of rain in 35 minutes the first time I went. So for contrast, just because I had to inspect other sites, I looked at other areas where the land had not been disturbed.
Same.
Almost an equal amount of soil was deposited from other sites where the ground was not disturbed. So that's an extraordinary amount of water. We don't have a depth of soil for absorption for that in this area. So I have begun that dialogue with them to see what improvements we can make on that side. And that's all the update that we have on that.
I don't know what days first and second were, but I did go up there, I think it was Sunday morning, on July the 9th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've got pictures. I took pictures. I drove all the way up to the top of the elevator, and it looked good to me. I didn't see anything.
Pictures.
Actually, we also went over to South Harpeth and did that whole stretch of road and took pictures as well. So I didn't see it. I guess that was the second rain.
It was the second rain. The first
I didn't see the
rain-
first one, but the second one, and I sent them to him and said, it looks pretty good to
The
me.
first rain was on June 29th, and it was
Okay.
pretty significant. That
Yeah.
one, we had a discussion and a meeting with the developer post that inspection to have a discussion about what we expected for soil erosion control. So it is better. A tool like any site that's under development is going to be some issues if the rain falls that rapidly, that fast. There's not a control in the world other than a flood break that's going to stop it. So they have made a lot of improvements. I was impressed with the work that got done.
Just a question of clarification. Was
Sure.
the only issue, because I'm new.
Right.
So was the only issue the runoff and the roads, or were there issues with like septic tanks and things like that as well in the past? Or was it just, because all I was looking at was the runoff, and then.
A couple of issues that we have dealt with in the last 3 months.
Mhm.
Runoff was a major issue.
Okay.
Because the soil and erosion controls were very minimal. They made 6 attempts over a period of 8 months to install them. They were just insufficient. They were the wrong kind. Water was just blowing up under them and going on down the hill into the backs of
Okay.
other people's lots. The secondary issue that we had, you mentioned septic tanks, there was. When they were installed without someone from the city being there. You're supposed to call before you set that tank so we can make sure that it's where it needed to be. It was about 14 inches above soil level. So once the tank was lidded, you add another 3.5 inches to it and then pile dirt on top of that, which increases the slope, which would increase the runoff. We spoke to the developer, explained what we needed to have done. They corrected that issue, so that's no longer, because the water was literally just flowing 2 rivers around them. They were up so high. That's been repaired and taken care of.
So the main issue now is going to be runoff under the roads.
Absolutely.
All right.
And
Was
they
there
don't
also,
need gravel.
was there also an issue with foundation water and the foundations of the lower houses?
The foundations, it's not so much a foundation issue, like it will eventually if the water kept going in, but they were literally, the water was going into the back of the houses
Okay.
in their garages
Okay.
and taking mud with it. So at one point we did an inspection, it's probably been, about 9 months ago, John, that last inspection, there was about 1 foot of mud in his garage.
Is that happening anymore?
No.
That's not
But
happening.
they, and what will solve that problem sooner rather than later, there are drains in the middle of the roads, there's curbing. And of course, there's the roundabout, which is among man's stupidest ideas to ever be generated, but, somebody thought it was a good idea. But in the middle of these roads, there are drains, storm drains, big great drains. But the road surface is below the drain because final paving hasn't been done. So once the paving's done, the edge of the paving will be curved in, so to speak, to the drains, and then the water flows, it will go where it's supposed to go. Now it can't because the surface is too low. There are several areas where the base layers have been removed on the road from water scalding across it, so discussion has been held at length with the developer and the contractor. So they now completely understand what's going to be required.
Thank you. Any other questions on Ellerslie? Anything else on Ellerslie, Sharon?
That is all.
Okay, thanks. Next item, Golf Club of DBI LLC, staff inspection report.
I am delighted to report my last 2 inspections have been nice and clean. There is some siltation in the creek and in the river, but they have been issued, if you remember, the ARAP permit to remove the silt. The silt is permanent. Soil itself breaks down, but the silt is the slick bottom of clay soil. When you get a puddle in your yard and the water just won't ever go out, it's so fine that it compacts and forms all, that's what they make clay, bowls and dishes out of, is that siltation. And it's so fine that the water just sits there and can't go anywhere. So they have a permit from the state, not from the city. We don't control the waterways. They belong to the state. They have a permit to remove that siltation. Temporarily, there will be some stirring of soil. There will be some cloudiness, and when it rains 3.5 inches in 35 minutes, there's going to be soil disposition. But the areas that we inspect are good. They're good. Right now, there's some water coming off the hill on South Harpeth. It is the water that's being used to water the grass. They have a withdrawal permit from the Harpeth River to get that water. Pump it, if you remember the pump house discussions from the last several months. They are watering the grass. The quicker they can establish it, the less soil will come down the hill, the better it will work out. But the water that's running off of the hill for that watering process is clear. I just went by and checked it again today, right before it came here. So there's no siltation in it, which means the grass has taken root. And it will go back into the Harpeth after being filtered through the grass. So it might be a little cleaner when it goes back in than it was when it came out.
So when you say it's coming down, is it going into the ditch or is it going out onto the road?
It is going across the road in one location. I will have that email out in the morning, bright and early. So once it comes down, they need to curb that. What's happened is they're removing the spoils pile. If you remember that big stack of debris that was there, removing that, and temporarily they had to move the soil and erosion controls to the side of the road to keep from driving the dump trucks over it. And that now allowed the water to come out instead of directing it into the ditch. It's now going, there's a little rivulet going across the road. I took pictures, you'll get them in the report.
Where exactly is that, Sharon?
You know where the 4-pipe area is? Where the
No.
four, all right, so everybody here's heard that till.
Yeah, well,
Their ears are bleeding. As you come onto the site, if you come directly out of Kingston Springs, you don't take the detour, you take the bridge now.
Right, right.
You go across the bridge, all right? There's an entrance about 3/4 of a mile up and on the right. That's the first construction.
I know where that is, okay.
There's a break in some of the siltation rolls there that needs to be repaired because it's stuff, there's stuff full of mulch. That's what they're full of. And when it gets a break in it and it rips, it can't absorb anything because it's spilling out. So I'll talk to them about that. Then you go up to the next construction road.
The exit.
Right. The exit road that has the concrete on it. That's your second one. And then there's a third one down at what we call 4-pipe. And the reason we call it that, there are 4 culverts back to back.
The whole hillside's bare now.
Right.
Okay.
And so that is being stripped out and done because I insisted that they take all that debris pile out because.
That's up around that curve.
Right, I wanted to
I know what
finish
you're
trashing
talking
the
about,
road
okay.
before they pave it. I wanted to
Okay.
pave it and then trash the road because it makes no
Right.
sense. They started moving all of that with the county direction because that's the county's road, right? So in that particular area, there is water from the watering of the grass up on the hill that's going across the road in that location. It's not deep, but the road, I think it would be a fair statement to say the entire road surface is gonna have to be redone. And that it is. If you pave it now, it'll be horrible in another month. And then you'll remember that one of our visitors one night said we need to start thinking about the city's end of the road, targets in the city. We've been thinking about that road from day one. So at the end of it, they will be required to resurface the road all the way back into town.
Okay.
Any further questions? That's all I had on that, other than the construction phases are somewhere between 90 and 96% for the structures. So for both entities, Golf Club of Tennessee and the Golf Club of DBI. So we're winding towards, hopefully, into the big hauling and construction relatively soon. I did read the entire report from TDAC, all 233 pages of it. It was illuminating, to say the least. So the siltation process is going to be a little more complex than we originally thought. It's going to take a little longer than anybody originally thought. But you will see some turbidity or clouding of the water as they're working that through. And they're doing so with the state's blessing and permission. And we have no dog or anything. So that's my report.
Thank you, Sharon. Any
Thank you,
questions for Sharon on that? Okay, so the next item is our bylaws, and in your packet, you will see them starting on the page following the last month's agenda that you approved. And so it starts on the back of the page, actually. And Sharon, if you don't mind, I'll just try to push us through it.
Certainly.
But if anybody wants me to stop or ask something in particular, please let me know. So thank you very much, Sharon, first of all, for a red line copy. Thank you. So we can now know that based on what we looked at last week, or last month, we can see exactly what was corrected.
Yes.
So as you're coming down through, and Sharon, if you could just keep me honest on this so I don't miss anything. Does everybody see it? So we have Article 1, no change within Article 1. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so then going on to Article 2, you see the first change is Article 2, Section 3, where we remove the wording as authorized by the Planning Commission. You can see us line through.
Yep.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Yes.
These were all from the discussions we had last month. Then going down through, Article 3, no change. Article 4, no change. Article
Section two.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Small
Section 2,
word.
yes.
Yeah, there's a
Shall
few
be.
words
Shall
taken
was
out there.
changed to may, correct,
And
and
was
then the
struck.
and was struck at the end. Thank you. So any problems with Article 4? That's
No.
changed, all right. So then Article 5, meetings, on the first part here, Section 1, 2, and 3, I don't see any changes.
None?
On the continuation of Section,
Comments.
pardon me?
I'm sorry.
On the
Public
continuation of Section 3, public comments, you'll see in 3B, we removed the words non-repetitive. And I see no other changes in,
That is correct. And you will find these comments in your minutes from June.
right.
They're reflected in there, so we'll be able to match them up.
So no other changes in Article 5, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Everybody good with Article 5?
Mhm.
Okay, Article 6, I don't see any changes in Article 6, is that correct? Okay,
That's
Article
correct.
7, voting. On the first, page 3 here, I don't see anything. Moving on to the next page, I don't see anything else in Article 7.
There's not.
Okay, Article 8, I don't see any changes. Everybody good with Article 7 and 8? Okay, and then Article 9, I don't see any changes on page 4.
Article 10.
And I don't see any changes on page 5. Article 10, you will see where we removed and be disqualified from voting upon the matter, etc. You see the line through that. And then the highlight is what we added in from,
PCA.
Kingston Springs Municipal Code, conflict of interest.
right. So we added that in
Directly in.
so that we have in front of us in our bylaws what the issue or what the rules of the game are on conflict of interest. So that was added in.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on coming through because of Article 10.
No.
As a brief comment on that, there were two requests from the city attorney. One was to include a definition of personal interest, so you'll know I included that.
Okay.
And then the sections that state what happens next.
Okay.
So it's taken directly from the municipal code word for word.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Article 11, applicant submission to the planning commission is deleted in total. Because that is, if you could just remind us, covered in something else, right?
It is. The design certification exists within your subdivision regulations.
Right.
I included it originally because we rarely ever discuss that in this meeting.
Right.
But I wanted you to be aware that they are required to, in writing, say we have met all requirements. That transfers liability for the project from the city and the planning commission to the developer.
Yeah. Okay, so we removed
Struck it.
Article 11 and Article 12 because that's now covered in a city ordinance.
That is correct.
Okay, and
That's it.
then, yep, the amendments remains as it was stated. Any questions on the bylaws?
You will need a vote to approve them with the changes so that I can change the agenda for next month with regard to conflict of interest and other items.
Okay.
Motion to approve amendments as designated here.
And second, not.
Okay. So we
Tony's.
have a race for second, okay. And that concludes old business. Thank you. Oh, that was passed. Oh, wait a minute.
Vote.
Would you like us to vote?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimously passes. Thanks, sir. Moving on to new business. Sharon, are you going to cover this?
New business.
Town of Kingston Springs plat, acquisition of portion of map 91.
We are going to defer to the city manager, and we're going to have a vote again this month for a deferral.
The town of Kingston Springs has opted, let me back step once, in that parcel is zoned R1, and the portion that has been, to use the Sharon word, cleaved from the whole is smaller than is allowable by square footage-ish for an R1 designation. The town had thought, and we would eventually rezone that parcel as well as the parcel that we own next door to it to commercial use, which is the highest and best use of that property. So rather than cleaving it as R1, we've decided to go ahead and rezone both of those parcels, or request to have both of those parcels rezoned to commercial before then we acquire that parcel from Second South Cheatham. So we'll be representing this as a rezone request at the August meeting.
And they prefer
Since I was not here last time, can you tell me where those parcels are?
Yes, sir. If right across the railroad tracks, where the train depot is, last year, I guess it was a little over a year ago, the town purchased that parcel from the Himmer estate.
Okay.
Just to the right of that parcel, there is a tract that is bordered by pretty much the gravel drive that goes into that parcel straight off of Main Street and Valley Drive that goes from here on Park Street all the way back, and it narrows down in front of the water department.
Oh, okay.
Second
All right.
South Cheatham. We've worked with Second South Cheatham. They've been gracious enough to give us a portion of that parcel so that where we have the farmers market tents set up now, then we will eventually then own that parcel rather than having their permission to use that parcel.
Okay.
But this is a matter of rather than separating and cutting that smaller parcel off of the whole as an R1 parcel and then rezoning it to commercial,
Gotcha.
we decided to go ahead and rezone it to commercial and then
And
just
then-
really just switching the process up. It seems like the most efficient.
So do we
way to
now own the depot?
Yes, sir.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
for almost a year now, I think.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Very cool.
Yes, we've had, without getting too far off topic and track, we've had a structural engineer review it. It's in much better shape than even he thought it was going to be. We'll have to do a few things to bring it up to code so we can have the public visit that. We plan to use it as a museum and an event space eventually.
How cool. All right. That's great.
See, good news.
It is.
So John is going to request a deferral, because we can't.
I would like to request a deferral to bring this back to the board in the
Next
August
month.
meeting as of reason.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay.
Got it.
Both of you guys are buttoned.
All right.
Honestly.
Any other questions or comments on this motion before we vote? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. All right, is there anything else for discussion?
Nothing other than the amendment to the status of supervision of the planner was accomplished. It's having been through 2 reads at the city, so that issue has been resolved. Good to know.
Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye. 7.